Hey second grade, it's Mrs. Hoppenstein from Churchville Elementary here to finish your Chameleons. So the last time we met, we were learning about warm and cool colors. You had to choose warm or cool colors to paint your chameleon. So let's look at my chameleon real quick and think, did Mrs. Hops use warm or cool colors? I see oranges, yellows, and reds. Makes me think of the sun and fire. So those are definitely warm colors. That means when I go off to paint my leaves, my sky, and my branch, I need to be using the opposite set. The opposite of warm is cool. So that means today I get to use things like purple, blue, and green to fill in my background. So let's take a look at my chameleon. I had talked about last week wanting to make this stripe black, and I told you if you were going to do that to hold off and wait until the other paint was dry. Now that my paint is dry, this is a perfect opportunity for me to go in and fill in any of those other neutral colors like blacks, browns, whites, or even a gray if I wanted to make and fill in that section. So I'm going to get my brush wet. I'm gonna find the black in my watercolor tray. Sometimes the black and the purple can look really similar. So it's always a good idea to either test it out. You can always test it on your finger or on a blank sheet of paper. So my black is down here. So I'm gonna very gently, remember Mr. Whiskers is like my puppy dog pet. Gently pet the color nice and easy. And using that ballerina brush, tiptoe, staying in the lines. My black crayon outline helps act as a resist to keep that color in. And now I don't have to worry about that black mixing in with my red or my green or my yellow and changing it to be any other colors. And it'll look nice and solid. Now because we're using watercolors, if you want something white like the horn of my lizard, I can just leave that white. I'm not going to paint it, I'm not going to do anything around it, or I could color it in with a white crayon. That is completely up to you. So I've done my black. I think the next neutral color I want to use is for my branch. I'm going to do the hula by pushing my brush in my water, gently spinning it around. Remember, don't go really fast and make a tornado. Whew. Tornadoes will spill your water, they might splash on your friend, and very gently I'm going to dip the tip, wipe the tip so there's no drips. And I can go and get my color. Brown is another neutral color. It's not warm, it's not cool, because it's kind of a mixture of different warm and cool colors together. So it's kind of both, but it's kind of nothing either. So brown, most branches are brown. And I can start by taking the brush and putting a flat wash of color. The color comes directly from the container onto my paper. That's what we call a flat wash. You don't have to make your branch brown if you don't want to. Some people might want to make a red branch. Some people might want to do a purple branch. Some people might want to do a blended branch of some kind. Let's say I wanted to change the color. I could always put another color over top of it. Or maybe I want to make it look like it changes color. So I'm going to do the hula. Go to my purple, cool color, and then maybe down here the branch is kind of purple. It's my painting and I can do what I want, but I don't want the whole branch to be purple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this purple up into my brown and bring that brown down into my purple, and the color blends together and mixes together a little bit, so you can see that change slightly. You can make it as purple or as brown or as blue or whatever colors you want, as long as you're doing the opposite set of your chameleon. Purple is cool and my chameleon was warm. So I can take this color that's now my custom purpley brown color, and I can use it to paint my little branches on my leaves. I think that looks pretty nifty. Remember, if you get an area where you have a lot of paint sitting and you have that puddle and you don't want it to be there, you can do the hula, squeeze the water out of your brush, make him nice and dry and thirsty, and lay him on that puddle. and he will soak up those puddles. That way your colors don't run together. While you're doing that, it gives you a chance to think about what kinds of colors do you want to make your leaves. Now, we know in real life leaves can be lots of different colors, but because of the way we are doing this with warm or cool colors, I have to just pick cool colors. So I can't have any red, I can't have any orange, I can't have any yellow, but I can have greens, I can have blues, I can have purples. I can also have a mixture. Maybe I make a bluish green. Maybe I make a bluish purple. And just like we did that lime green that's a warm color, you can mix the purple and the red to make like a magenta or a red violet. And that would be a cool color too. Your leaves do not have to be one color. You can have changes in the colors and do whatever you want. But again, you can start with a flat wash, getting that color on your brush and outlining your leaves. Now the veins of your leaves, you don't have to paint around. Because that leaf is all the same color, you can just flat wash over the entire leaf. And that looks pretty cool. When you need more color, you just get a little bit more water, you pat the color again, and you paint another leaf. Tiptoeing like a ballerina around edges, then laying your brush down a little bit flatter. You can also, just like we blended some colors together in our branch, you can do that in your leaves as well if you want. Maybe you want to make part of it one color. Do the hula and come in. The trick is you got to follow your color wheel. So remember what colors are next to each other. Now my paint palette is kind of set up in the order of the color wheel, so I know that when it's next to yellow, it'll mix together, or when it's next to blue, it'll mix together. But if I put yellow with my green, that's making a warm color, and my leaves need to be cool. So I'm gonna put a little bit of blue with it. And then I can make like a blue teal or aquamarine by layering some blue with that color, and it changes it. The fun thing about mixing it right on your paper is you still get that color on your brush, so I can pick it up and move it and kind of soak that puddle from one spot to another. And you can do that as long as the paint lasts. Sometimes the paint will get a little bit more transparent or see-through looking because there's not as much pigment and there's a lot of water, and that's okay too. You're going to continue painting your leaves, all your different colors. You can do a crazy cool mixture if you want. I've never in real life seen blue leaves in my life, but we are artists. And if I want to make blue leaves, I can make blue leaves, as long as they are the opposite set of leaves that I used before. If I want to mix them and swirl them with the purple, I can do that too. So I made a blue violet by mixing my blue, mixing my purple. Sometimes we call this color indigo. And then I can move it to other parts of my paper. Now you might be thinking, man, again, I can only use 3 real colors. But when you mix them, you can get a whole variety of colors. You also kind of need to think about what we're gonna do for our sky. Because once you have painted all of your leaves, you wanna really think about what are you gonna do with your sky? And this is when we're gonna use a totally different technique. You may have never heard of it before. This might be your very first time trying it, and that's okay too. We're gonna do what's called a wet on wet wash. Basically what we do is we make a sandwich with our paints. Think of the plain water. You're gonna start with plain water and lay that down in an area and just paint a small section with plain water first. This is like a layer of bread to your sandwich, okay? Then you're gonna fill it with all that deliciousness. Let's say it's a grilled cheese. The cheese is the color. So I can start with a little bit of blue, and if I put that where I've already put the water, it'll start to move on, swirl, and do cool things on its own. So you don't need a lot of paint. It's gonna make the colors a little bit lighter, but the fun thing happens when you actually mix two different colors together. So a sandwich sometimes will have meat and cheese. So we already have our cheese. Let's add another color to be our meat. And that's going to be a little bit of green. So as I put my green in here, the green will swirl and mix a little bit. But it's not a sandwich until it has another layer of bread. So I'm going to clean my brush off and take plain water and put it on top. And as I push this on top, the colors kind of swirl together and mix and almost make like a tie-dye effect. So they're not filled in and mixed completely. Some parts are more blue, some parts are more green. And that's what's called a wet on wet wash. You're gonna stick with those colors and watch what I do. Now I'm gonna go over here and paint this section. I've got plain water first. Remember, layer number 1 is my bread. A layer of plain water. Then I can do a little bit of my meat and clean my brush, get a little bit of my cheese, and then I'm going to take plain water again. The problem a lot of people have with a wet on wet wash is it makes a lot of puddles, and sometimes your puddles can mix together with things that were already wet. So you definitely want to occasionally stop, squeeze that brush out, and soak up those puddles so that they don't run together as much. Now you don't always have to stick with the same 2 colors in a wet on wet wash. You could always just use one color if you like the way that looks too. You don't even have to mix if you don't want. But I love it because it makes it a little bit lighter. But if you do change colors, you want it to be colors that are gonna mix well together. So I did green and blue down here, but I put the green down first. Maybe over here, I'm just gonna do a little bit of green so it matches that side. And then maybe I'll do a little bit of blue here. And then I'll do a little bit of water and swirl them together. So I have this like light blue transition. So the colors of the sky are changing just like they do in real life. And then maybe in this bigger section, I start with my plain water. And this section's really large, but I don't want to paint the whole thing. I want to take a smaller section at a time because the paint or the water will actually soak into your paper and then it won't do the cool things that you want it to do. Let's say over here, I'm going to start with the blue for my cheese. But instead of doing green, I'm going to switch to another cool color and go back to that purple. So I'm just changing it slightly, putting a little bit of purple down here and then back to my bread, which is my water, and I can swirl this together. Now, if you're not careful, you're gonna get a little sloppy, like I got that over into my horn a little bit, but that's okay, because when it dries, I'll just come in with a crayon. Now, I painted that area, but I still have a lot of white, so I'm gonna put another water spot next to this, and look at how the paint that's on there is just kind of following the water. It's really fun to do, because it just moves wherever the water goes. And then I can help it move a little bit more, and it'll make that purple not look quite as intense or bright. And then I can mix it back with that other color, put a little bit of my blue in there to mix my meat and my cheese. And then I can come back in with a little bit of water and just help those colors swirl together. And look at how my sky changes from more of a bluish green to more a little bit green and blue, then blues into the purples. And you can keep going like this the whole way around your paper, filling in your spaces until there is nothing white left. Keep filling in those wet on wet washes, remembering to layer your colors with water, and I can't wait to see what they look like in the end. Have fun painting.